with the Council of Tolkien. Sid's just stepping away momentarily,
Do you see the live?
but I don't think he knows that we can hear him. I got Matt with me right now. Matt, that was your cue to say something.
Welcome to the show. Sorry for the hiatus, but we're ready to roll.
Well, I think most people are aware of why we were on hiatus. I talked about it on several lives in the previous. Dear, in the previous 5 weeks since we were last here, or well, more than 5 since we were last here, and I also did a video about it, which is available right now for what do you call it? I can't even talk today. It's available right now for members, and general users will be able to see that soon. Next Wednesday. And that's my next question and answer video, which one of the questions is, John, where the heck have you been? For anybody that might be asking that question, John, where the heck have you been? All right, let's move the YouTube chat over here.
Pretty busy, haven't you, John?
And that's my next question. Yeah. Hey there, Dylan. How's it going? Dylan, you can't join the Discord call like that. You were throwing me off. I had to kick you off of there because it jumbled up the webcams. But yes, thank you for welcoming us back. And actually, since Matt and Sid, I alluded to it a little while ago, but I didn't mention it. Dylan is our second moderator here on the YouTube side of things. So we now have 2 moderators on YouTube. Yeah, just keep in mind that, that's why I said, Dylan, get off the call, Dylan, get off the call, and then I just had to kick you off because we were trying to line up everybody's webcams properly, and yeah. It's a process. It's a process. But welcome in, everybody.
Next time we get together, I'll be broadcasting from a new place.
Oh, that's right. You're going to be in a different abode.
I'll be in my new library.
The next homely house west of the Misty Mountains.
Yep.
Hey there, King Thors. How's it going? All right. Why is my phone going insane right now? Is it anything in it? Oh, I love this. My phone is telling me that I am live. I think I'd know. Oh, no. Yeah. No, the stream works as it normally does, Dylan. That is our communication and everything. But yes, welcome everybody to the stream. Council of Tolkien. I'm going to give a very, very brief, very extremely brief rundown of why we haven't been live for a long time. Keep in mind that if you want the more detailed account, next week's video, or if you remember this week's video, explains it in more detail. But basically, I didn't have a computer. My computer was not working. Hey, Chris, I see you there. And now we have a new computer, a whole new setup and everything. And we were thinking of maybe going live last week, but it just wasn't working out really for any of us. So, yeah. It's just like that. Okay. But anyway, guys, yeah. I didn't mean to click off of that. You're cooking up some dinner while you listen? You got to tell us what you're cooking. A little lembas bread there. The sausages.
Saw a great recipe
and crumb.
On Instagram about a week ago.
Chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, and gravy. That sounds good to me. Very southern United States of you. Dylan says he hopes that Matt and Sid are doing well. Hey, Medio and Bonnie Bell, how y'all doing?
Yeah, we are.
That's right, Matt. The Bonnie Bell Plumbottom is here. You say what?
Plumbottom.
Yes.
It's Plumbottom. Hi.
All right, let's come off here. Okay, you guys are going to become visible. There we are.
I have a lore crush on you.
A lore?
Okay, I took off my ring. It worked.
You not only did you take off your ring and it worked, but you somehow went from Bag End to Moria in like a second there. That was pretty impressive.
Well, Matt's already taught us how fast a Maiar can go. Or a Balrog. You never know exactly who's here.
It's fast.
That's okay, Chilla. Tommy does Chilla. You'll figure that out, I'm sure. He was saying that he had an issue with his membership being canceled because he doesn't live in this country, and he has to figure that out. So, you don't have to be American to join the channel, but I guess there's some kind of rules regarding that. Okay, so now what I'm not seeing here is... One second, guys. That seems fine. Twitch is telling me the stream is like dog water quality right now, but I don't know. It looks good to me. I'm looking at it. Let me just refresh that. There's the quality of hot dog water. Oh, Dylan says Sid Kemp coming to us with a bit more of the dwarvish look with the beard. All we need is for Matt to have one, and it could be the Council of Beardlings. Well, Matt does kind of have the 5 o'clock shadow going,
I tried. I really tried.
He's just a young dwarf. He'll grow into it.
A young dwarf. You mean they aren't born with full bushy beards?
Well, only the girls.
No. Well, that's a fun thing because that comes... And my topic today is actually going to be specifically about dwarves. But that's something that comes up. Well, people will say, Tolkien said dwarfish women have beards. And I'll say, no, he didn't. He did not. And they'll say, yes, he did. Yes, he did. And so, no, he did not. And... I
believe he said dwarvish men have beards, and you can't tell the men from the women.
Well, no. Well, actually, what he said was that from a distance you couldn't tell the men from the women because they dress up like the men, and that there are so few dwarvish women. But what he said was all male dwarves have beards. But it gets taken out of context where it's all dwarves have beards. But then again, this is one of those things where it could have been possible that he changed his mind a couple of dozen times, sort of like, are the eagles Maya, or what was the other one he changed his mind on a bunch of times? Do the elves have pointed ears or not, So, yeah. But yeah, when it is true that when they would go out and they would travel, they would basically cross-dress. And I think that was a safety concern because dwarvish women are a minority and as such are valued very highly in dwarvish society. So if one of their women, let's say was captured or something, that would be a very high value ransom there.
Or a very quick axe battle.
Well, yes, I'm sure that they're quite capable. You know what I mean? That one dwarf in the TV show, Durin's wife, she seems like she could hold her own. Yeah. You could say the women look like dwarvish boys, or that they have beards. I think the first way of putting it is actually pretty good. I also think that it's possible that they just might put on fake beards when they're traveling. I think that's possible. You could rally the whole Kaza to save a dwarf queen. Oh my God, yes! If it was like somebody important's wife, a king or a nobleman or something, forget it. That means war. That means like whoever did it, them and their whole clan is going down.
The dwarves rarely let their women come above ground because they were so concerned about their well-being. The orcs were had the same kind of tendency to them. You never saw them above ground. But if you were a female dwarf and you were above ground, you might look like man because they might actually conceal their identity with fake beards probably. They might even be well armed enough to the point where they can protect themselves so you wouldn't be able to tell whether they had a beard on or not. The rest of their body structure probably looks the same as the men, as what Tolkien is talking about.
And somebody on Quora, I wish I remembered who it was, but somebody on Quora pointed out, because I said that, Tolkien also said about the elves specifically, that, because elves pretty much look like, like people. They're just prettier than we are,
And sometimes larger.
Yeah, sometimes they're taller. Well, it depends on which elf and which man, absolutely, but they do tend to be taller than us. But I said that, that Tolkien once did say that the only difference between an elf man and elf woman were the parts that were necessary for reproduction or childbirth. So, other than that, you have a very sort of androgynous race. And with what he said about the dwarves, it's like, wow, are men just especially dimorphic? Because mortal men and mortal women, there's more of a difference there, And
if so, does that arise from Morgoth's influence before we were born? Is it an aspect of being a fallen race?
Or is it the favor of Iluvatar?
Exactly, and there's no way to know.
Yeah, it could go either way. I personally would go for it's the favor of Iluvatar. I think we are, the mortals are his chosen ones. He likes us more than he likes the elves. That's clear just in the fact that we get to leave the world after a while and not get stuck there till the end of time, which is actually related to my topic, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
I think it kind of goes towards aesthetics and spiritual similarities between the genders, because of their closeness to the creator and Aman, living in those early years.
Hey,
but
Time
I
Lord
do not
guy.
think it has to do with the physicality. I think that the males still were just built differently, stronger, more of a warrior type physical body.
I think when you have men and elves, we're made into Iluvatar's image, right? But with dwarves, it's a little bit differently. Because he didn't make the dwarves, except in a very grandfatherly or adopted sort of role. So I think that, what you see there is you see, Aule created the dwarves, and it was sort of brought up that he doesn't really have the blueprints for people. So he was just sort of doing the best he could,
And I actually think that in creating the hobbits, Iluvatar took some hints from Aule and built in some dwarvish toughness.
Oh, absolutely.
And resistance to the ring into the hobbits.
So you're saying he looked at the dwarves and the way that they were constructed and said, hey, there's some good ideas there.
Yeah,
some good
exactly.
ideas there. Yeah, we could do something with that. Okay, Sid, you are the one who is going to have the first segment here. You did request a little bit of extra time to set it up, so I'm giving you here 2.5 minutes. So go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Tonight I want to share with you a way of reading Tolkien that has brought me joy for over 50 years, with sudden moments of beauty and amazement. And all of you, listeners on the live stream, can do this with us tonight. I call them golden nuggets when we discover tiny moments in Tolkien's work that are just gorgeous. Some are so subtle that we can't tell if Tolkien formed them consciously or if they arose due to his immersion in Middle-earth. Anyone can find these. So after I give a couple of examples, I'm calling on all listeners to join the chat and tell stories of moments when you said, I can't believe Tolkien wrote that, or I can't believe I didn't see this until now. These small items add flavor and depth to deeper themes in Lord of the Rings. You can find these moments in anything Tolkien wrote, and also in the Peter Jackson LOTR movies, but probably not anything made after that. I'll share 2 nuggets, then ask Matt and John and all of you to chime in. One people many have seen. The first time Frodo can't throw the ring into a fire is at Bag End in Chapter 1 when he learns what the ring is.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2, sorry. A new one I just discovered. Gandalf at the Council of Elrond is describing his meeting with Barliman, Butterbur, and Bree. Gandalf freely gives away a gold coin that is a round gold object and says the blessing, Ass, fool, thrice worthy and beloved Barliman. It's the best news I've had since midsummer. It's worth a gold piece at the least. May your beer be laid under an enchantment of surpassing excellence for 7 years. He gives the gold circle away freely instead of using it to own others. He offers a blessing instead of inscribing a curse. His blessing encourages surpassing excellence in the recipient's creative gift, beer making, in a way that benefits all and sundry, rather than promising bondage, enslavement of all. Okay, guys, what do you have? Search your minds and memories for wonderful moments. I have more if the show slows down, but for now, everyone on can type in, and Matt and John, who wants to go first?
Oh, that was exactly the right amount of time. Now, first, before I wanted to say something, but Dylan has a comment here. I completely agree, said, my golden nugget or golden moment was for me at Bilbo's homecoming, where Gandalf says to Bilbo, you are only a small being in a very wide world. And Bilbo says, thank goodness. Which I love that. And by the way, Dylan, I know you remember, I don't know if you saw the video I put up last night, but I did do the reading that you requested, which included that. I read the entire final chapter of The Hobbit for that video. I wanted to comment because I had a thought about the gold coin that Gandalf gives to Barlaam Butterbur as a token, or, I mean, I assume, that Gandalf is the sort of guy that pays his tab. And he seems to come to that particular inn quite often. But pointing this out in the way that it was specifically that he felt that the information gained from the innkeeper warranted that's sort of a tip or a grace that he's giving to him. It's a bit beyond. He's not just paying for his meal and his room and his board. He's doing this to reward Barlaam. Here's a question. Now, we know that Gandalf, sometimes has money. Do we think that this is some of the treasure? This is a piece of the treasure that he got at the end of the Hobbit, which they dug up from the trolls, and Bilbo wanted to give it to Gandalf, and Gandalf said, well, we'll share it because you might have more expenses than you think. And now we're seeing maybe one of the last few coins that Gandalf has being given to Barlaam, and that this could, be a coin that's from the First Age. This could be something out of Gondolin for all we know.
I would... Go ahead, Sid.
I would say could be, and that's a beautiful imagining out of you that is well within the bounds of the legendarium, and make it beautiful for yourself. Matt?
I don't know about that. I think that he was in stealth mode still at that point, and to use anything from the First Age, even with Barlaam looking at it, or anybody seeing it or accounting it later on in their accounting or whatever, that would be something that would be like, holy smokes, that is not the normal kind of money. And with the way that Tolkien writes about the rumors going around, that part of the world, it just seems to me that would not be a smart move for Gandalf to hand over any, first or early Second Age coinage.
Well, the reason is because it was found in the same location as Targon's sword. Sure.
I just don't think that's all the money he had in his purse.
Well, no, but I'm just thinking a gold coin, and especially that we do consider the economy of Bree, and that it was said that a pony is worth, at best, 4 silver pennies. And then we can consider, what a gold coin, especially a large gold coin, would be worth. This was a heck of a gift. And I think that Gandalf, I mean, he's in stealth mode for the fact that, nobody knows who he really is, but everybody knows Gandalf comes to this inn and drinks there and meets with people there. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And if anybody was pressed on it, it would be, hey, the wizard gave it to me, and he probably got it from some orc he killed or something, which is close to the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a request, guys. Yeah. You're both right. This is part of creating a sub-creation in Tolkien's world. And it's best to say anyone who's within the scope of the story is right. And also, I'd really like us to return to you guys what are your, and anyone typing in, what are your own gold nuggets, please? This half hour.
I'm going to sort of just echo what Dylan said in a way, and then I think that, like, for me, the most golden of nuggets is from the end of The Hobbit, a little bit earlier than what he said, but specifically the speech that Thorin gives right before he dies. And it not only about the nature of dwarves and the nature of hobbits and how he's changed as a person right before his death and how he feels about Bilbo and how he wishes everybody was sort of like Bilbo. But also, just this, and this is going to actually bleed into my topic, this hint at this grand mythology that the dwarves have that we don't know. Right now, like, if you're just a young boy reading The Hobbit for the first time, maybe you know that it's connected to something that's bigger called The Lord of the Rings. Maybe you don't. But you're just told that, well, this is what a hobbit is, and these are these dwarves, and they go on this adventure. And then we just get this little hint of what dwarves believe happens when they die. And or at least what they tell people they believe. And Thorin says, well, whether the world is better or worse, I'm leaving it now, and I'm going to go sit in Mandos, which he refers to as the halls of awaiting, and sit with my forefathers. And he doesn't really say how long that is, and I'm going to be talking about that a bit later. But I think that Thorin's whole speech is probably like one of the most beautiful and insightful moments in The Hobbit. So I think that's my golden nugget.
Cool. Matt, have you got one?
Mine is...
Chris has a good one.
Samwise's gaze at the stars in Mordor.
Oh,
Yes.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And I, they had come, they'd come to this huge long trek. It's smoky, and it's got vapor fumes. They could barely see. They're exhausted through their dirt and the tears and everything else in their eyes, and
they're starving, and they're dehydrated, and they're tired.
Yeah, they're barely able to function at this point. And they look up, and despite the smoky veil, they are able to catch a glimpse through all of that to the stars above that are unchanged and reminders of creation itself. And not just reminders of creation itself, but the primacy and the power that's really in place over all things, including whatever Sauron can put together down here on Middle Earth. I have the passage though, and I want to read it.
Go ahead, yeah.
There, peeping among the cloud rack above the black ridges, was a single star. The beauty of it smote him, as if he had been looking at some sudden flower sprung in a barren waste. He knew that it was Arundel, the evening star, shining with the light of the Silmaril. He thought of the eye that was blurred for a moment. He was back in the Shire, and the smell of hay and the sound of running water were in his mind. He knew that the darkness was only a passing thing, and that beyond it there was an eternal light.
Yeah.
And I've always loved this passage because it was just a good reminder of not only really what was the most powerful thing in the universe, which was the light created, but also that these two hobbits, especially Sam, was able to have this moment aside from everything, to recharge, to regroup, to find time to have grace, and to find time to have an appreciation and be even maybe partially thankful for the reminder that he was able to have for that moment. In fact, if you think about it, it might have been the small input charge he needed at that particular moment in the journey to keep going on. It almost felt to me like that it almost felt like that truck stop where you're able to get some donuts and a Coke, I'm not saying that's what I eat, but
I think you are saying that.
Yeah, I'm saying that. So It just felt like that at that point, and I've always liked it, and I wanted to read it. So there's my input there for
Yeah.
you, Sid.
Yeah, you just gave me another golden nugget right now.
Before we go to you, Sid, I wanted to react to what Matt said, and we got to catch up because the chat's giving a bunch of them, which is what you wanted.
Okay.
But I also wanted to point out that one of my other golden nuggets is right before that it's not right before that in the text, but it's right before that chronologically when they're climbing the stair of Kirithungel. And Sam, it has to do with Sam again. He thinks of the starlight, the glass that Galadriel gave Frodo. And then he goes like, holy smokes, that's, the same light in the Silmarils. We're in the same story as Beren. Do those stories ever end? And Frodo says something like, well, the people end, but no, the stories don't. Okay, let me give you a bunch from the chat because they have been coming in. Chris here, and by the way, who anybody doesn't know Chris in the chat, that is Sid's wife. Tom Bombadil playing with the ring like a toy, which is a really good one. And Frodo's alarm there, is a fun one because up until that point we were just impressed by how hideous and evil and humongous and tremendous the power of the ring is. And here's this silly little guy who's just like, oh, look at that. Oh, it's over here now. Okay, here, you can take it back.
But he also shows the eye glowing from inside the ring and makes fun of it.
Yeah, and Chris even points that out, a parody of the Eye of Sauron. Dylan here says another one is when Bilbo goes down, first time that he goes down into the tunnel to confront Smaug, and how he's just so scared and he does it anyway, and that's just sort of a relatable thing because we've all been through that situation where you're just absolutely terrified to do something, and then you just have to, so you do it. Tommy Does Chile points out, and I think Matt is going to like this one because I think this is definitely one of Matt's golden nuggets, which is Luthien singing Morgoth to sleep. That's a big one. Tommy says that he imagines it as the most beautiful song ever beyond our understanding of sounds. I think we're all caught up there. Okay, Sid, go ahead.
Matt, what you described happened in Sam when he saw Earendil's star is incredibly similar to what happened to Merry and Faramir and Éowyn when Aragorn healed them with Athelas. Each of them was cast into a dream memory of a beautiful time earlier in their lives. So there's a parallel in the magic of Earendil's star bringing memory and hope, and Athelas, when the hands of the king are the hands of the healer, bringing memory and hope and bringing people back to their lives. Thank you.
Now, just to point out that a golden moment or golden nugget could be incredibly funny, right after that is a scene that I think is the funniest moment in all of the Lord of the Rings, which is when Merry is starting to recover and he starts babbling at Aragorn and says something along the lines of, I've lost my pack and I don't have my... Well, first he starts complaining that he's never going to smoke again because it reminds him of Theoden, who has died, his friend Theoden, and they had a lot of discussions about herb lore, and Aragorn sort of tells him, well, then why don't you smoke in his memory? And Merry says, I will, once I get some tobacco. I've lost it all. I don't know where my pack is. And Aragorn sort of does this over-the-top angry reaction where he's like, a true soldier wouldn't lose his stuff. And, I haven't had the luxury of even laying in a bed for a moment since I got here, and not much less a smoke. And Merry's apologetic and just, I'm sorry. And then, Gandalf's standing there the whole time, probably chortling to himself. And then, after they leave, Pippin turns to him and he says, your pack's right there next to you. He saw it the whole time.
Yeah. There's another funny moment with that I think Chris can chime in about. Keep an eye out.
Okay.
Chris, give it to us.
Oh, actually, she was typing it up, and she said, oh, that's the one I was talking about. She says, this one is long but so funny when Merry asks Aragorn for a pipe. I was going to say that. As she
Sean,
tried to start typing it.
You were saying how these golden moments are good and beautiful and funny, and I have one that's dark and still golden.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Of course you do.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. I have to try to represent sometimes. This is also about Sam, and this is what he has to say to Shelob. And I find this to be a golden moment because, despite what you guys think, I'm a good-spirited soul.
Oh, we know you are.
Yeah, I know. But he has a flame of protection and rage against the evil that she is. And I love to see that come out in him, and it seems to be a golden moment to me in the horror sense a little bit, because he's horrified, but his fear is overcome by his sense of rage at the evil that she is. And I love that because it feels golden to me. And it goes like this. As Shelob approaches Frodo, who's paralyzed, he yells at her and says, "You've hurt my master, you brute, and you'll pay for it. We're going on, but we'll settle with you first. Come on and taste it again."
It's sort of like that scene in Aliens when Ripley is in the Mac, you know. No, you're in for it now. You know, he has a similar moment in Lothlorien after viewing the Mirror of Galadriel, and he sees these images of the Shire being, you know, in a state of ruination, and his father being put out onto the street, and all this stuff happening. And this is a moment of great temptation for Sam, because he is not only offered the chance to go home and prevent all this, and realizing that Elrond had a point in wanting to send Merry back to prevent all that. But he's even encouraged to, and he says, "You know what? I said I'm going to stick with Frodo, and I'm going to stick with Frodo. But I'll tell you what, if any of that really happens, somebody's going to catch these hands."
Yeah.
He's a tough little bastard. I love him.
Yeah. There's a few coming in from the chat. Dylan has another dark one. The darkening of the trees of Valinor. Imagine what fear ran through the elves, the Maiar, and especially the other Vala. Valar would be the... When you add an R, by the way, Dylan, that's what makes it plural. Michael Patton here says, when I think you mean Earendil bore a silmaril on his brow, but the Valar did not ask him about it, even if it might contain some of Elbereth's power. Oh, see, that's interesting. That's interesting. And I'll tell you why. I think, Michael, they needed all three of them for it to be of any use in restoring the light of the trees. Here's another one from Dylan. Imagine Orama's great hunting horn approaching the gloom weaved by Ungoliant, and to hear their leader's horn breaks before it sounds no more due to the darkness. Yeah. Oh, wait. Chris is saying read mine. I think I missed one here. Okay, yep. And he will tell you that he did not know that the herb you desire held any virtues, but that it is called Westman's weed by the vulgar, and Galaris by the noble, and that is exactly, you know, and he'll tell you a lot of things, and he'll talk your ear off, you know. Aragorn was pretty done with that guy. Yeah, no, I had one. Let's see. I had one, and then I sort of lost it, but let me grab it here. Sid, why don't you, I think you had another one while I'm looking for this.
Yeah, I've got 8 more if we need them.
I don't think we'll need 8, but
okay. Let's see. Galadriel sees Gandalf the White in the Mirror of Galadriel as Frodo is looking at it. Frodo sees Gandalf wandering but wearing white. And remember, Galadriel has said she can't see Gandalf anywhere. But Frodo can, so she sees, and she knows he's never worn white. So this is when she finds out that he will return.
And she winds up being the one to give him the white robes, too.
Honestly, I think she probably carved him a new staff too.
Oh, absolutely. That was explicitly stated. The question that we have, because it wasn't specified, is do you think that that staff was out of a malern tree or not?
Could well be.
Could be, right? It's a common fan theory that it may be, and I don't see any reason why it can't be, but I couldn't say for sure here.
Conversely, why would it be any other tree but Malorn? So
Yeah. I mean, it logically makes sense.
Yeah. Why would they choose another tree and it would and choose that over Malorn? There'd be no reason to do that. So it almost seems like it's fait accompli.
I have one of my favorite golden nugget moments here. Thus Tur journeyed slowly for 3 days, drinking the cold water, but desiring no food, though there were many fish that shone as gold or silver, or gleamed with colors like to the rainbows in the spray above. And on the 4th day the channel grew wider, and its walls lower and less sheer, but the river ran deeper and more strongly, for high hills now marched on either side, and fresh water spilled from them into the Kirith Niniach over shimmering falls. There long while Tur sat watching the swirling of the stream and listening to its endless voice, until night came again and stars shone cold and white in the dark lane of sky above him. Then he lifted up his voice and plucked the strings of his harp, and above the noise of the water the sound of his song and the sweet thrilling of the harp were echoed in the stone and multiplied and went forth and rang in the night-clad hills until all the empty land was filled with music beneath the stars. For though he knew it not, Tur was now come to the echoing mountains of Lamath about the firth of Dengrist. Then there once long ago Feanor had landed from the sea, and the voices of his host were swelled to a mighty clamour upon the coasts of the north ere the rising of the moon. So, it was said that until Beleriand fell into the sea, Morgoth's scream, which called the Balrogs to him, echoed in that place. And just for a brief moment, it didn't. Just for a brief moment, there was nothing there but music. Which is, the power of music. And this isn't a guy, some great elf lord with a magic harp, wrought by the Valar. This is a guy with a harp made out of wood and bear tendons. So,
but very different from Gollum, who would have eaten the fish raw.
Give it to us raw. Hey, Pyralis, how's it going? Okay. I want to go to Matt. Matt, do you have another one, maybe?
Golden moments. I've always been intrigued. I just love it. I love thinking about it. The whole idea that Goldberry has washing day, and there's this massive downpour of rain.
This monsoon.
This monsoon is going on because she's watching. She's a water spirit. She knows how to do some things, in my opinion, more so than Galadriel ever would. But she's able to bring this deluge, and Tom Bombadil is outside, and he comes in, and he's in the middle of this car wash. And the hobbits are describing this in first-person narrative, and Tom Bombadil walks in the door dry. In fact, the only thing that's wet is his boots, and it's not from the rain; it's from the mud he's walking on. The mud just didn't leave his boots, so he walks in dry. And I always love that because Tolkien is deliberately, in the opinion of the way that the elves or the dwarves or the hobbits are describing this, he's telling the reader that he's not of this world. He just doesn't want to get wet, and he's not going to get wet from everything else that's outside being just being sopped with this rain. And a golden moment to me is that Tom is just not of this place. He's even able to keep himself dry and just move about the way he wants. without being affected or hindered by the rain or anything. I just love that. I love that. I love that, all that kind of stuff. It's really great for me personally.
There's another
wait,
golden moment built. No, I needed this right away.
okay.
There's another golden moment built into that one because just before that scene, Tom says, "Not on two legs can make the weather, can control the weather."
Yeah.
So Goldberry, whatever she is, doesn't have two legs.
Yeah, well, they kind of hinted at that in the TV show too, but you know what that reminds me of, Matt, where it's this torrential downpour, and then he comes in dry as a whistle. It reminds me of something my grandfather used to say, where you say he'd go out and get the mail or something, right? It's pouring rain out there, you crazy, and he'd say, just dodge the raindrops.
Yeah, just dodge it.
Just walk
Yeah.
between them.
Something's not. It makes it feel like he's an apparition of some sort that the hobbits can see, but doesn't get wet because it can't get wet.
He's
But
also,
of course he is. But he is physical.
yeah, he's a
So
contradiction of sorts too, and Sid said something there of like, he says nothing on two legs can control the weather, and then Goldberry, who as far as we know, we only see her as having two legs, she controls the weather. He says nobody has ever caught him, but we know Goldberry caught him, and what I think it comes down to is that there are rules within his boundary that he has set that she is completely exempt from.
At the same time, he is master of himself. He will only experience what he chooses to experience.
Yeah.
So the ring can't interest him at all because he's not into power, and the rain can't make him wet because he doesn't want to get wet. And he says that's what it means. And actually, Goldberry says of him that is all it means to be a master. No one can trap him.
Yep. I have a theory about Goldberry on this little thought here, and that is controlling the weather isn't necessarily what she did. She called to presence a concentration of precipitation.
She seemed to have scheduled
Not
it.
necessarily.
He knew when it was going to happen. Like, this is something that she does regularly. So
Right. But I don't mean, but what I'm saying is there may be a difference in his mind between controlling the weather, capital T, capital W, and what she's able to do in a controlled sense for her washing day. And that might be a distinction, but just a thought.
It's specifically annual. I mean, this is every year she does this. That's implied in the text.
Okay.
Can I give two other really quick ones?
It would have to be really quick because we have 5 minutes, but before you do, Chris brought up something that I would like you to elaborate on, perhaps. It says that you wrote a fun, speculative little thing on Quora some years ago that suggested that she was the Green Wizard.
That Goldberry was the Green Wizard?
Yeah, you wrote some sort of fan fiction, Chris says.
I don't remember actually writing it, but yeah, it was actually a side story really looking at what if Elbereth and Goldberry got together and reached out to Frodo ahead of time and solved the entire story very quietly, got him to go the long way around before Sauron was looking for anything, come up into Mordor for the south, and drop the ring in the fire before anyone knew. And in that, I pictured Goldberry as the Green Wizard. Yeah. So my last of the two really quick ones. Mary, this is deep into Mary's character. Mary was boldest but weakest in the presence of evil, falling asleep by the breath of a black horse, and then bold again later, strong enough to deliver the fatal blow to the Lord of the Nazgul, seeing how much he grew. And the last one is really funny. Lovelia Sackville Baggins wields her umbrella exactly the way Gandalf wields his staff. She always has it with her. She can use it to hide things. and she can use it
Like
to beat up
spoons?
her enemy. And yeah,
I'm
silver
sure
spoons.
that would probably hurt if she hits you with it and it's filled with spoons.
And she and she used it to beat up her enemies to everyone's delight.
There you go. The first one you said about Mary is interesting because, when I did my read through of the Fellowship of the Ring on YouTube, I pointed out that very early on, throughout a good chunk of book one, up until basically they reach the Prancing Pony, Mary is kind of sort of the leader. I mean, the story doesn't start with him. It starts with Frodo and Sam and Pippin. But as soon as Merry shows up, he sort of takes charge of things, and he reveals that he was the one that started the whole conspiracy, and that he had Sam spying on Frodo, and all these different things, and how he was the first one of them to know about the ring, because he just happened to catch Bilbo using it to hide from Lobelia, who's the other person you mentioned. And when they get to Farmer Maggot, he's the one that speaks up. When they get to the Prancing Pony, he's the one that speaks for the group. He's the one that owns the ponies. And then, you notice Merry sort of fade a little bit into the background once Aragorn shows up, which is a natural consequence of introducing a whole bunch of new characters at once, because we're introducing Aragorn and Nob and Barlaman, and then very shortly after that, and Bill Ferny, and then very shortly after that, we're getting Glorfindel and Elrond and Gimli and Legolas and Boromir and all these people. So Merry sort of fades into the back a little bit, and we start to see him come back when he's taking care of Pippin, during the Two Towers, when he's the one that has the most to say to the Ents. So I would say that, he was sort of the boldest one of the hobbits. He had Sam was bold in his own way, in a different way, but Merry was, he had the bearing and the station that I think Frodo hadn't had the chance to grow into.
Yeah, and the way his heart is given to King Theoden, though he didn't know who she was at the time, to Éowyn, I think.
Éowyn was
that as well.
She was the one that gave him that horn.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had a great affinity for Merry as well. And we see it with Pippin and Faramir, and that also is great because it ever since Merry joins them, he's sort of like put in this duo with Pippin. It's never Merry or Pippin, it's Merry and Pippin. And then once they split up, we get to see more of the individual personalities.
And yet they each build strong bonds. Mm-hmm. Merry with Theoden, and
Pippin and Faramir.
Pippin and Faramir.
Yep. And we have 2 seconds left, but I'm just going to... Oh, it's so loud. Matt, if you wanted to have like a closing thought there.
No, I'm good. I'm ready to move forward.
Okay. All right, then. That was really good, Sid.
Thank you.
Okay.
Guys, keep enjoying finding nuggets. I've literally been finding them for 50 years.
And you'll continue to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give myself 2 minutes. You can just briefly describe my section, because I'm going to go next. And on this, we're going to talk about the immortality of the dwarves. I mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about the dwarves. And I know you think, well, dwarves are mortal. What are you talking about? They die. But we talked about this with Thorin, talking about waiting in the halls of Mandos. And really, what is the definition of immortality? I mean, elves can be killed. They could die of waste, of grief. There's a lot of bad things that can happen to them where they might wind up in Mandos, and then Mandos may choose to hold them for whatever reason, but no matter what happens, they don't leave the world. They don't go outside of the boundary that we know of as the circles of the world. They don't have an afterlife. They just have an ongoing life that just continues. We know that men, and by proximity hobbits as well, leave. Even if we spend a brief time in Mandos, we leave the world. We get to be with our Creator, and then we get to go to some sort of afterlife, whatever that may be, through a path that the only person within the world that knows the path is Namo Mandos, and the only person that knows the destination is God himself. So when we consider all this, what is the significance that dwarves are essentially immortal, that they don't ever leave the world, and the fact that some of them don't even really die at all. And of course, I'm going to talk about Durin the Deathless, who is said to have lived for a good 2,500 years in the First Age. However, it's said that, sometime around the end of the First Age, he dies, right? But we don't have a date of death, and we really don't have much to go on there. And when I was researching... wait, something happened here. Why is it all... Oh, okay, hold on a second. Something odd happened here. The webcams are all not lined up again. Why is that happening? I'm still... okay, there, I fixed it somehow. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, that's my 2 minutes. Let me set up the half hour. I'll elaborate a little bit more before I hand it over to you guys, but let me set up 30 minutes here. That was strange. Oh, come on. Hold on. Just bear with me, guys, here. New computer, and I'm getting used to things. Okay, there we go.
Everything is looking fine here.
Yeah. Well, just for a moment, everything was sort of askew, but I did manage to fix it. Also, by the way, Michael over on the YouTube chat points out that Merry was also the tallest hobbit, so he's remarkable in other ways as well. I think that they did say that he did pass the height of, who was it? Bandabras Took. Elf magic detected on the webcam. Yeah, something happened, but I think we got it fixed. Anyway, guys, let's talk about dwarves. So I was answering a question where somebody on Quora asked, do the dwarves, the dwarvish fathers of the dwarves, like Durin and the other six, do they really reincarnate into their own lines, or is that just something that the dwarves say happens? And it's interesting because they're sort of giving a binary choice here, where they're saying the choices are yes, it happens, or no, it's just a fable. And the answer is actually kind of it's a fable, but not in the way that you would think. I'm going to kick it over to Sid in just a moment. But if you read The Peoples of Middle-earth and The Nature of Middle-earth, we learn that the dwarves are an incredibly secretive race. They don't tell other races about anything. What happens is that when the dwarves die, their souls don't really go anywhere. They just stay there. They're gathered by Aula and brought to Mandos. But specific dwarves, and we learn that they are the Dwarven Kings, the seven fathers of the dwarves. We don't know about the six mothers of the dwarves, if they're included in this or not. Aule does not gather them into Mandos and just lets them sit in their bodies for a really long time, and eventually they recover from whatever wounds killed them or whatever weariness overtook them, and they walk again. And the dwarfish way of telling other people in Middle-earth is, that's Durin the Second. He's a reincarnation of the original guy, when in fact he's actually the original guy. And so basically my question to you guys is, why do we think that the dwarves do that? Why do they not just say, yeah, our seven fathers are immortal? Sid, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is Aule's specialty is raising mountains. He makes solid, lasting things. So when he decided to make a humaniform living being, knowing what Morgoth was up to, it says he made them incredibly solid and enduring. So I think, but he didn't know what men were like, so it's just natural that the ones he made would last as long as a mountain. I think it's just his nature. I also think it's really interesting which Durin in Numbers was the one who fell to the Balrog and was poisoned by Sauron's gift of a ring.
Most likely the fourth, but I'm unsure about that.
I thought the fourth was the one who arrived in the Fourth Age.
No, that would be the seventh.
Seventh, okay. So and the ring probably kept going with all the way down to this during the sixth.
Oh, so that's interesting. So no, I like what you're saying because Durin, at some point he gets a ring of power. He's using it in all his lifetimes, and then after the One Ring is destroyed, maybe that's why the next Durin is the last.
But I want to add one step in between the last two things you said.
Mm-hmm.
Through during the sixth, the reappearances were apparently prompt, if not immediate.
No, they were
they
were generations apart.
Generations, but not as long as during the sixth to during the seventh and the fourth age, because at that point he had to recover from what the ring and the Balrog did to him, and I think it was a longer recovery, and possibly couldn't happen until the One Ring was destroyed. So tough and durable and self-renewing, but it can take a lot of work, is my feeling about it.
Yeah, Durin the Sixth was the one killed by the Balrog. So, and this is, and I just, for anybody who's wondering, very briefly, I will also hand it over to Matt because I'm sure he has stuff to say. Just very briefly want to read you the passage from the Peoples of Middle-earth that goes over this. The matter of the dwarves, whose traditions, as far as they become known to elves or men, contain beliefs that appear to allow for rebirth, may have contributed to the false notion above dealt with. But this is another matter which has already been noted in the Silmarillion. Here it may be said, however, that the reappearance at long intervals of the person of one of the dwarf fathers in the lines of their kings, especially Durin, is not, when examined probably, one of rebirth, but of the presentation of the body of a former King Durin, say to which at intervals his spirit would return. But the relations of the dwarves of the Valar, and especially the Vala Aule, are, as it seems, quite different from those of elves and men. And it goes on to say, the dwarves, and this hits on a little bit of what you said there, Sid, about Aule. The dwarves add that at this time Aule gained them also this privilege that distinguished them from elves and men, that the spirit of each of the fathers, such as Durin, should, at the end of a long span of life allotted to the dwarves, fall asleep, but then lie in a tomb of his own body, at rest, and there its weariness and any hurts that had befallen it should be amended. Then after long years he should rise and take up his kingship again. So then the question is, why is the seventh... I mean, so it's the same guy each time, and they just tack a number on and tell the dwarves and the men that it's a new person that was born because they're keeping this a secret for whatever reason. But why are they keeping it a secret? Why is it so important that nobody knows this? And why is Durin the Seventh the last one?
Well, do we know he's the last one or just the first of the fourth?
Well, that was his name, Durin the Seventh, the last.
That could very well be the last in the time that elves
that they're in history. That's a good point. That's a good point, especially since it was said that the dwarves eventually disappeared. Did the dwarves disappear, or did people just stop writing about them?
Well, that's a complicated... maybe in a few months I'll do that one, but specifically in this, it's clear that the fourth age, which Tolkien calls the Age of Men, is the age of the rising of men and the leaving or becoming hidden of all other speaking creatures. Remember, this is his prehistory of us today, and we don't have elves and hobbits and dwarves and talking dragons. And so... by the end of, it's quite possible that during the seventh lived the entire fourth age, but at the end of the fourth age, he left Middle Earth, as all creatures, except maybe some hobbits who are still very good at hiding, did.
It is also possible that Aule doesn't gather Durin until he does a specific thing that Aule needs him to do, and the reclaiming of Moria might be that thing. That's another way of looking at it. But Matt, I want to get your thoughts because you've been quiet here.
Well, I've been quietly calculating all of what you're saying and have a theory about this. I don't think they're hiding anything. I just don't think they know for sure because they are confused about the passage of time.
The dwarves are?
Being the passage, yeah. And the reason I say that is because there are 7 fathers, and they are made by Aula, but they are put to sleep at the will of Eru. And Aule actually takes the 7 fathers and lays them to rest in the far sundered places. And he returned to Valinor and waited while the long years lengthened. Now, when you take the numbers of years that you're talking about, this 2,500 years, this might have been 2,500 years. It might have been the time that they were asleep. Now, the point I'm making here is they weren't dead. They were alive.
Yep.
They were just asleep. So we have a rectification of 2 theories here, which is harmonization, I think, in some way to think about here, which is, yes, they're alive. They lived for this long. They awoke, and they were long-lived, and they died. But we're not counting for the time in which they technically lived, because they were the first 7 that were put to sleep, and they weren't dead. They were alive, so they were alive during that time.
But what I'm referring to is the obfuscation that the dwarves give to elves and presumably to mortals as well, stating that there is a Durin the Second and a Durin the Third, and that he's, the son of this one or the son of that. With such as saying that Durin the Seventh was the son of Thorin Stonehelm, but that's just where he was slotted in the genealogy when he awoke, which and I think Sid or somebody pointed this out to me, which would have been probably in Moria, which is a wild sort of thought. Maybe was it you, Sid, or was that somebody else?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay, it might have been Laurel then, because I did have a discussion with Laurel about this as well. I forgot who exactly said it to me, but because that's where he died, so that's where he would have woken up again, which would explain why Durin the Seventh would make it his business to retake Moria, and why he would be so successful. But when we look at dwarvish culture, they don't share their language with others. They don't tell others their true secret names. They don't talk really about much of their spirituality. Thorin gave a lot away when he said, "I'm going to the Halls of Awaiting." But normally, they don't really share their culture with the other races. And it could be because of the way that Aule made them, and that they really don't trust anybody like they would trust him. But it just seems interesting to state that they have, that the 7 fathers of the dwarves never die, truly die. I mean, none of the dwarves ever truly die, but those are the ones that get to walk again, that get to get up and start walking the world and just be in Middle-earth. And my going theory here is that it's because Aula has a specific purpose for each of them that they have to do before they're allowed to fully rest in Mandos. Now, Dylan brought up a point. If we're to believe this, and there's no reason not to, because this is straight from Tolkien, in both the peoples of Middle-earth and the nature of Middle-earth, but also all seven fathers of the dwarves are probably the one that had the 7 rings.
Oh yeah, that has always been my understanding, that Sauron gave the rings to the 7 fathers of the dwarves. And people say the dwarves were not much affected by the rings. I actually consider it the greatest genocide in Middle Earth history.
They were
all the empires were lost, and you went from millions upon millions of dwarves to
a few thousand
scattered in the Iron Hills. Yeah, a few thousand in the Iron Hills. And
I think when people say that there was a failure there, I'll go to you in a moment, Matt. It's that it wasn't what he was looking for. It wound up working for him. He was hoping to control them directly. He never managed to do that. But they sort of, like you said, they took themselves out of the equation in a way. Go ahead, Matt.
My theory might be harmony with you guys, but it might be divergent. I'm going to put this out there. I think that the 7 fathers are brothers, kind of like how Melkor and Manwë were brothers. They were 2 sides. They were basically made as a brethren, because Aule was their father, their maker father, and so they weren't in any ascendancy from each other. They were basically brothers in a certain way, 1 through 7.
Yeah.
And I think what makes sense to me anyway is that they were made incarnate one at a time, and the dwarves on the receiving end of their new kings called them Durin the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. But they were actually incarnated brothers that were then allowed to awake and were allowed to be incarnate and sent in to the world. And these are those first seven that slept. Some slept longer than others because they all were made at the same time. They were set down to sleep at the same time. They were awoken for different purposes at different time and different sequences to do different things. Now, to the dwarf side of, like I said, the receiving side of their families, oh, this is an incarnate being, and so it's the next king. But they're all Durins, but because they're all Durin brothers, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
And that's how I see this might be the way for what you're asking might resolve.
You're
in
on
some
to.
ways.
I don't agree 100%, but I think I might agree with you like 80% here, because the word Durin does just mean king.
Yeah.
But we are told something, some specific things about Durin the Deathless, that he was the first dwarf to be created, and that he was also the last of the 7 to awaken. He was the only one of the 7 not to awaken beside a designated mate. But what's really interesting is that, almost all of the dwarves that we know as characters that have names and that we know a little bit about are all the Longbeard clan. There are 6 other clans, but they're all the Longbeard clan, the most important one, Durin's people. So we don't really, we're in this position, but even Tolkien doesn't know much about the other 6 clans other than what they're named and generally where they tended to live. We certainly don't even know the names of any of the other 7 fathers of the dwarves, and for all we know, maybe they were all called Durin, just because it's a name that means king. Go ahead, Sid.
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to say 3 things. First, briefly on what you just said. Many listeners may already know this, but some will not. All that is in the Silmarillion, which was written down by Bilbo at Rivendell, and The Hobbit, which Bilbo wrote down at home, and The Lord of the Rings, which Frodo wrote.
Frodo and Sam.
Everything large. Thank you. Everything larger than that they put in was based on elvish knowledge and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
They never, and for Tolkien, there is no certain view of what actually happened. It is always someone's story about what happened, then transmitted from, say, Elf to Aragorn to Frodo or whatever, and written down. And so it's all about history and not about factual knowledge. And then we come back to the dwarves, and there are a couple interesting things going on here. I'm now speaking as someone who is aware of the beliefs about rebirth and reincarnation in 5 different world religions. And you can't translate notions of reincarnation or rebirth, which are 2 different things, or only one life and then go to heaven, which is a 3rd thing, from one religion to another. It's utterly different worldviews. So I think the word reincarnation got included as the best dwarves could do to describe. Now, I do think Durin 1 through 7 was one soul, as John described from Tolkien's background. But that leads to another very interesting thing. Marriage is eternal in Tolkien's world. That was one utterly unchangeable item. So, and determines the fate of the being. So if there was a queen for kings 6, 2 through 7, other than Durin, it would be very odd that they were not also immortal, because that means the poor guy spent half a dozen lifetimes, however many for each one,
Aule did create
a widower.
Aule did create 6 female dwarves.
And that's the next thing.
But notice it's not 7, it's 6. Durin was the one without. So
and we know why.
yeah,
That's what I was going to touch on
that
next.
he awoke
He was
alone.
trying to make 7 and 7, but he went up the line, King 1 through 7, then back down the line, Queen 7 6 5 4 3 2, and then
Iluvatar, yeah.
Eru Luvatar burst in and said, "What the bleep are you
Yeah, what are you?
doing?"
Yeah, what's going on here?
and,
Yeah,
and so Durin never got an intended wife. That also means that Durin must be the only king of the dwarves who was exogamous, who
okay.
married into another dwarf clan, because the only way to get a wife
He would
would
have
be
had
from
to.
one of the other clans.
Um,
Yeah, because
I
he
have
had no children.
I have the answer, or I believe I have the
Okay.
answer, and Dylan was asking sort of the same question. But if marriage was eternal, what of Durin the First? He must have taken a mortal dwarf queen. The whole point of this section, the dwarves are not actually mortal; they're immortal. So his wife, whoever it may be, from whatever clan, she would have had to have been a different generation than him either. It would have had to have been somebody that he found later in life. Perhaps Aule does not gather her soul either.
Yeah.
Perhaps he says, well, this is Durin's chosen, so she's going to be with him until he's done.
And I find it very odd that given Tolkien's insistence that marriage is eternal, whether for immortals or mortals, that he doesn't explicitly think to look at that and say something about it in the books, in the
he's
passages you read.
As much as of an idealist as he could be, he was realistic. Finwë got a divorce or an annulment, whichever you wish to call it. And even, which of the Valar was it? I want to say it was Yavanna who even said this is something we should celebrate, not because of the dissolution of Finwë's marriage to Miriel, but because of the wonderful love that he has with his second wife and all of the happiness that she has brought to the Eldar.
So I want to go back to what Sid was talking about earlier about the reincarnation issue and the wives that are given to each one of the six fathers. That's what he says is exactly why I think, personally, I still think this, the more I've talked about it tonight, that these were dwarven fathers who were kept in sleep and made incarnate at different stages. That's why they were so long-lived. And were made incarnate and given their wives, and there wasn't any sharing of the wives with Durin the First. And that's why I think that all of the placement and the thing about the designated mates for these is why I think they were doled out. They were awoken and they were doled out, and their lifespans were long because they didn't come out all at the same time. They were made incarnate. They were in waiting and made incarnate and put in onto the planet as brothers. They were king brothers. They were the first 7. That's all there was. As far as where Durin got his spouse, we don't really know. We know he had one.
He absolutely did.
So we know he had one. That means he found one, and maybe that was the author's way of either not describing it or just saying, look, sometimes things aren't just given to you. Maybe you have to go sometimes and find your love, your sweet little honey. I don't know.
My view on that is nearly identical to yours. I just wanted to amend it and say that, and I'm remembering this now from what the history of Middle-earth teaches us, that he created the 7 dwarves, and then Iluvatar came and made his speech, and that he created 6 more dwarves before he put them to sleep. So the question is, why didn't he create 7? And I thought this might have been Aulus sort of coming to his senses, and hey, Alice, coming to his senses a little bit, in a way, or viewing things maybe in a different way. Keep in mind that from the point that he was now creating the 6 mothers of the dwarves, or he started to create mothers of the dwarves, the 7 fathers of the dwarves have true life. Now they have their own voices that they can speak with because Iluvatar blessed them. And maybe each of the dwarves said to him, what they wanted their wife to be like. And then Durin said, you know what? I'll know her when I see her.
Or he said, I just met King number three's daughter, and I really like her.
Well, they wouldn't have had
You know,
daughters yet because they were put to sleep in the earth.
No, but I'm saying what if Durin's wife came after they all woke up and he was last,
Absolutely,
and he visited
yeah.
number three and liked the eldest girl. You know?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
This is why I think again there's a staged approach, because one is the king, the second one has a designated spouse. They make babies. They have daughters.
Yeah,
multiple generations.
I'm saying maybe Durin didn't want that.
Right, but by the time the second and third one come, there's plenty of dwarven honeys to find as your so-called designated mate. It doesn't have to be laid in a bed right next to him when he awakens. It's just that by the time that the second, third, and fourth Durin come, there's plenty of dwarven women who have been so-called by fate set aside to be there for him. But that again indicates a staged sequence to their being placed, finding their women, they're finding their female, and then the next generation, the next Durin has more choices because there's more dwarves now.
I'm only talking of the originals here, though. What I'm saying
I'm talking about how they,
but let me say it more clearly because I don't think I was super clear there. What I'm saying is before they were put to sleep in the earth, when there were 7 of them only and they were all guys, and Iluvatar comes and makes his speech, they have a bit of a back and forth. The dwarves get their free will. Now they have their own voices. And Iluvatar is saying, hey, look, guys, I got to put you in the earth for a while until God says it's okay for you guys to come out. I don't know when that's going to be. But I'm going to start making some ladies. And at this point, he could look at each of them and say, you, what kind of woman do you want? You, what kind of woman do you want? And I'm thinking that the reason there weren't 7, because that's the way it was worked out with the elves. And this is still Aula doing his Iluvatar impression, doing what Iluvatar did, putting each, each male elf next to a female elf that was going to be his wife. And I think there was one of them that said, maybe I want to pick them out. Maybe I don't want you to make one for me. Maybe I'll know her when I see her. Maybe Durin was a romantic who didn't want, Frankenstein's second creation, so to speak.
Yeah. It's also possible that the only one that was made was the first one that was set aside for Durin the First, because after that happens, there doesn't have to be anybody made by Aula, because
Tolkien specifically said
made all the rest of them.
No, Tolkien specifically said that 6 of the 7 fathers awoke next to their brides.
And Durin was the one who
he was alone, and he was also separate from them because he was in a completely different. He wasn't anywhere near the others, so he wouldn't even seen another dwarf for a really long time.
Okay, that is true, but that means then, if that's true, I'm not arguing that point. That is true. That's a good reminder. But does that means necessarily then that Aule either made the female dwarves without permission of Eru, or that he got permission to do that exact thing to achieve that exact?
I think the permission was implied when he gave the dwarves full life and his blessing, just as long as they were put to sleep to awaken after the elves, because the only thing that would really interfere with his plan, he really wanted the elves to be the first speaking creatures to awaken Middle Earth.
Well, I agree that I don't think that Aule actually did something illegal, because he was only asked to put them to sleep.
Yeah.
And by direction, and that actually happened. But what a great sub-creative minefield, not minefield, but a mine we've walked into, because those things we've just discussed had to have happened that way, which means there's this storyline about female dwarves and their families that could be really fertile territory.
Really fascinating stuff. I
agree.
Go ahead, Sid. Go ahead.
Say one thing.
No, go ahead, Sid.
Matt, one thing you said I really think doesn't fit the canon, given we know that there was one Fea, one soul for Durin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In Tolkien's structure of the universe, souls are wed forever. So Durin one, wherever he got her, took a wife. If he continued to have a wife, except for rare and unfortunate exceptions, there is no annulment. There is no alternate. So I would believe that that wife was later for Durin 2 and on, either reincarnated next to him or reborn and rediscovered by him.
Or just
and it
reawakened.
Reawakened, yeah.
I think that's
and
the
it
good
was
term.
yeah, and it was the same soul. I have to really say
You mean we're talking about one
if
Durin soul in 7 different bodies married to the same
same body,
dwarf.
same body.
Okay.
Going back to what was
body
said,
goes to sleep,
that he
gets gets rebuilt like a mountain rising out of the earth,
goes dormant for a long time. Okay, we're out of time here, but I just want to address one thing from the chat because it is amusing. Chewy asks, "What is dwarfish riz like?" How does a dwarf talk up a ladies? And my answer is if you watch Star Trek, it would be very similar.
I'm going to take a bio break.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to take a bio break.
Go ahead.
For the next, because I've said all I want.
Because my take on that is if it would be like the Klingon mating rituals, where the woman throws things and screams and breaks furniture, and the man reads poetry. When I heard that, I thought I stopped the timer. When I heard Worf in Star Trek describe the Klingon mating ritual in that way, that the woman shouts and screams and breaks furniture and such, and he's asked what the man does, and he says he reads love poetry. I thought, well, that's what the dwarves would do, right? Because you could see Gimli. We don't know that he was ever married. He probably was not. I think he stayed true to his love was Galadriel.
We might have got our answer from Sid a second ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just as simple as saying, "I've got to go take a bio break."
I think, and you know what? I have to do that too. So I'm going to throw up the brief respite screen here. We'll be right back, guys. We have one more segment to get through.
Okay. Does that mean I'm cut off? I'm the only one left running the show. Oh my gosh. It's a good thing. I only have to go to the bathroom on Tuesdays, so I'm good to go.
Hi, Matt. I'm back.
We were teasing that maybe all it took to woo a mate, if you were a dwarf, was just to tell her that you have to go take a bio break, and if you said it in the right way, then that's probably all it took.
My thought was, I love to dear sweetie, I love to stroke your beard.
Oh no.
So I guess John needed a bio break too.
Yeah, so I was on here by myself, and I just told the audience that I was happy it wasn't Tuesday, because that's the only day of the week I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh no, I hope that's not true. You poor soul. All right, we're gonna come back over here. I really, really hope that's not true. Oh dear.
Yes.
And by the way, I also want to say that I would believe that because it is said that the dwarvish women actually choose their mates. And if they don't get the one they want, then that's it. They don't choose another. So if
evidence in Legendarium, there's actually evidence in Legendarium that's exactly what happens, and that's also what happens with the elves.
Yep. Well, the elves, they know instantly as soon as they see each other. So either could, like a man could make the first contact, or the woman could make the first contact. But with the dwarves, we're specifically told that the women approach the men and ask them, hey, you and me, what do you think? And if it's a no, or if they're already married or unavailable in some other way, then that dwarf woman just says, all right, guess I'll be alone, and she doesn't choose another one. And that's why we have so few dwarf marriages, especially when you consider only a third of their population are women.
Yeah, so it's a 2-to-1 ratio to begin with. I think that solution was probably good because just think of what would happen if there were a bunch of axe wielding dwarves disappointed in love, and it was over 50% of the population.
Wait, Chewie.
Male population.
Chewie just wrote like a little dwarfish love poem that in the chat that you guys have to hear. This is great. Fair as Mithril in sleep she lay, by her mate, feet still of clay, hearts like drums forever thrum, outstretched for ages in time as one. That's really good, Chewie.
Lovely.
By the way,
Send me a copy of that.
Mithril is not usually spelled that way, although I like your spelling better because it contains the word myth, as in mythology. But it's usually spelled with an I because that's the Elvish word for gray.
As in Mithrandir.
Yeah. Yes, Mithrandir is the gray pilgrim, or Mithril is Ril is brilliance, so brilliant gray or silver. Also, I mean, elves have more than one word for things. Thin. I talked about this in an article I wrote. Thin means gray as well, as you see in Thingol, but also you see in. Do either of you know the original name of Gandalf the Grey before he was called Gandalf the Grey?
You don't mean Olorin, do you?
No, I mean when Tolkien first conceived the character, he gave him a different name, and he did wind up using the original name in sort of like a one-off reference later on in The Hobbit. I just wrote an article about this. I'll have to link you guys to it.
Don't remember.
It was Bladorthin. Bladorthin. Thin meaning gray, and Blador is something that we're not quite sure of. I think it's a reference to Bladoranand, which was the name that Beleriand had at the time, and it also kind of just means the wide world. So it really is like an old version of Mithrandir. Gandalf was the name that of a dwarf in the original draft of The Hobbit. Thorin was Gandalf, and Gandalf was Bladorthin. But he did use Bladorthin when Thorin was waxing poetic about all the treasures that they were going to find in the Lonely Mountain, and he mentioned spears that were made for King Bladorthin, who died before, he could purchase them. So they were just sitting there. Anyway, Yeah, Olorin is his true name, but I was talking about early in the writing, Deborah, and I'm sorry that I didn't say hi to you. Hi, Deborah. That he was calling Gandalf, because Gandalf is from the Voluspa. It's one of the Norse names derived from Gandalfir, and all of the names of the dwarves were from Norse poetry, except for Thorin, because he changed that later. And hey there, I see Laurel there. How's it going? She's just stopping by to say hey. Matt, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and you're going to tell us what we're going to be talking about. Go ahead.
We are going to talk about King Azaghal.
Interesting.
Who?
I'm gonna King Azaghal.
Interesting. Okay.
We're gonna talk about King Azaghal from the Silmarillion. I'm gonna stay on the dwarf theme tonight. I don't talk about dwarves very much. It's cool, but it's not my favorite topic. But we're gonna talk about what a badass he was, basically, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what he and his guard did when they were faced with Glaurung in the Nirnaeth or Nordiad of the fifth battle in the Silmarillion. I'm going to do a little reading when we get started, and we're going to talk about what this tells us about the dwarves, what this tells us about not only their size, but the possible size of Glaurung based on the passage clues we have, and what it tells us about the dwarven the special abilities that they have and the special weapons they use. So it's going to be a little bit of a on-the-field expose about them, especially the dwarves, the early dwarves of the first age.
Dylan is screaming in all caps in the in the chat going, "He who pierced the hide of Glaurung," which is exactly right.
Well, then he's gonna...
Now, okay, let me set the timer here for 30 minutes. I want to ask a question. I'm going to start here by asking you a question. Both of you. I'm asking both of you this question, and I'm also asking the chat this question. Since he is a king, and he is a dwarf, Azagul, is he one of the seven fathers of the dwarves? And I will submit to say that yes, he is, and my reasoning is the simplistic name. Durin meant king, Azagul means warrior.
I can't see any other obvious one, because once, we know there were seven mountain range kingdoms. Of the name of one is the only one we know, Khazad-dûm, and the others we don't know.
That was the largest one.
But each one had a king put there by Aule. And as far as we know, no one who didn't have that ever called himself a king. Dane Ironfoot of the Iron Hills never called himself king of the Iron Hills. No one ever called themselves king of Erebor. So,
well, the title was King Under the Mountain.
Oh, that's true.
Now, I will say, though, there is something else that supports what you said, though, that Balin took the title Lord of Moria.
Yeah,
not king, but
just because there are seven Durins doesn't mean they get birthed by that name.
No, I think you're still confused about this. There was one Durin. There were seven fathers of the dwarves, of which one was named Durin. Yeah. Now there were there were Durin the second, Durin the third later on, but as we said, they were all the same guy. The Durins being all separate people, that was the fiction that they sold to the elves, and that's why that's written that way in the Silmarillion. So
your contention is that they're immortal.
Yes.
So this particular guy, okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm going someplace with this, John.
Wait, okay. Did you miss that when I said the name of my section was the immortality of the dwarves?
Well, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't miss it at all. I just don't necessarily. Not totally on board with that quite yet. But it's the thing is that Azagul is the king of the dwarves and Belagost.
Yeah,
they're one of the seven main kingdoms.
Yeah, and I mean the Longbeards had other kings other than Durin. There were plenty of them. Thorin, Stonehelm,
Well, I think Belagost was the fire. I think Belagost was Firebeards, weren't they?
Yes, but I'm saying that it's a possibility that he was one of the fathers of the dwarves, or he could have just been a different king, is what I'm saying. But I'd like to believe, based on the linguistics and the fact that his name just means warrior, and the great feat of injuring the first dragon.
But my point, though, is if they are truly immortal, then how would there be another king besides Durin?
Because kings created at the beginning of time before Eru even found out. That is absolutely clear in the Silmarillion.
Okay,
each one of them was an immortal king that would go to sleep and wake up again. That's what we're proposing.
In the interim, when they're sleeping, there are other kings. But also, my contention is all the dwarves are immortal, not because they don't die, but because they don't leave Earth. That they're stuck in Mandos, just like Feanor is.
Got that part. I see where you're going with that. Okay. Now. So what I want to talk about, though, is
Matt, your internet is kind of. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it.
When you duck your head, we can't hear you well.
Duck my head.
Yeah. When you look down like that, your microphone isn't quite picking you up. But I was just saying that you were kind of like your image was frozen for a moment there, and you were kind of breaking up. So whatever you just said, if you could just reiterate.
Okay. What I was going to say is, as John was saying, he wants me to talk about a little bit about this passage and how tough these guys were. So I'm going to read the passage, and we'll let this be something that we're going to then discuss. Okay, so I'm going to read the passage, and and I'm going to say a couple things and turn it over to you guys, and then I'll reclaim some time at the end. So here we go. This is from the Silmarillion of the Fifth Battle. Last of all, the eastern force to stand firm were the dwarves of Belagast, and thus they won renown. For the Nalgrim withstood fire more heartily than either elves or men, and it was their custom, moreover, to wear great masks in battle, hideous to look upon, and those stood them in good stead against the dragons, plural. And but for them, Glaurung and his brood would have withered all that there was left of the Noldor. But the Nalgrim made a circle about him when he assailed them, and even his mighty armor was not full proof against the blows of the great axes. And when in his rage Glaurung turned and struck down Azagal, lord of Belagast, and crawled over him, with his last stroke Azagal drove a knife into his belly, and so wounded him that he fled the field, and the beasts of Angband, in dismay, followed after him. Then the dwarves raised up the body of Azagal, and bore it away, and with slow steps they walked behind, singing a dirge in deep voices, as it were a funeral pomp in their country, and gave no heed more to their foes, and none dared to stay them.
And it sounded something like this.
I'm immediately struck by two things. One is I've always loved the image of a mask so fearsome that it would scare the crap out of a dragon. And it also raises the issue of fearsome beings like dragons and Sauron and the Balrogs can be terrified also.
You've talked about that a lot, side. Sid, about the terror driven into evil.
Yeah. And the other piece is that how similar this is to Sam and Shelob in the attack. He holds his knife and the dragon bears down and impales himself and loses and runs away.
Yeah.
That's Shelob's story is a retelling of that.
And if that was a sword, Glaurung would have died right there. If that was just a little bit of a longer blade.
The passages go on to talk about his enormous head was more like a serpent than a lizard's. Smoke issued from his nostrils and out of his mouth, and when he breathed the fire, there was only a glow in the deeps of his throat. It also discusses that he was slow and stealthy, for all the fires in him were burned low. Great power had gone out of him, and he would rest and sleep in the dark. Thus he writhed through the water and slunk up to the doors like a huge snake, ashen gray, sliming the ground with his belly. So there's some other passages talking about the fact that their underbellies were just as bare, almost as, especially Glaurung, that is, not so much Smaug, but Glaurung was described as very slimy and open, exposed, without any scales in his, to his belly. Obviously, he was crushed.
That was the weakness of the dragons, and that and Glaurung was mostly okay because he crawled on his belly, so it wasn't very vulnerable. And Tolkien said that the winged dragons would fly in such a way that they would block missiles and arrows and such with their wings as they flew. They wouldn't expose their bellies. Smaug was arrogant because he had all the gold and silver and jewels protecting him.
Brilliant engineering on that for Smaug. Mm-hmm. I'll also say it simply sounds like Glaurung was a beta version of Dragon. A lot of parts not working yet.
Well, he was the alpha version, if anything. He was, because even before this happened, he came out and got pelted by arrows because his armor wasn't finished growing yet.
Yeah. So, but I meant in terms of alpha testing and beta testing and needing as many upgrades as your new computer.
Oh, well, that was a complete replacement.
Well, he was a first model for sure, but he was a fire breather. Mm-hmm. He was also massive, and Tolkien draws him and describes him as if I was to describe this here on the show, it would be kind of a cross between a Komodo dragon and a monitor lizard, a little, kind of somewhere between those types of shapes, although very long. My estimation being about 120 feet long.
I think
in some of my other articles.
I think the head shape, like a monitor lizard, specifically because it's mentioned to be serpentine, but the body shape more like a Komodo dragon because he's so thick and bulky and muscular, or even like like an alligator almost,
Well, just for
the
giggles,
body.
I know you're so curious. Some of the drawings that he has of Glaurung crossing the Narog and other pictures of him describe not only his form, but if I was to make a guess, and I have in other articles, I would have put him at about 120 feet. And
we had an in-depth discussion about this, you and I too, if you remember.
Yeah, we did. That was a long time ago. But if we use approximations,
it was last year.
Use monitor lizards and Komodo dragons, in expansion to 120 feet, scientifically, he would be pushing about 253 tons ish. He's a big boy, but that's the science behind that. But what I want to get at and leave it to you guys to talk about is, what does this passage tell you, not only about the metal of the dwarves, but the metal the dwarves are using?
And this actually goes into what
close.
Dylan in the chat asked, what do we think the knife was made out of? And I think, well, here's the thing. We know that the hide of a dragon could be pierced by anything as long as you're hitting their belly, because that's the soft, slimy part of them. However, we're talking about not a sword, not an arrow, not a dagger, but a knife. A knife is pretty short. And when we're considering the sheer bulk of a creature like Glaurung, the fact that he was able to feel this wound and that it made him back up, this must have been pretty sharp. And I would guess mithril.
Well, if he's the king, absolutely.
Unless Durin's Khazad-dûm was discovered in part of that age.
Oh yeah,
it couldn't be. It was okay. It could be mithril.
It was, and as a matter of fact,
only Khazad-dûm was the only source of mithril.
It was the only source of mithril in Middle Earth. However, a lot of it was brought over from the Undying Lands as well. But also, I should mention that Khazad-dûm was so massive and so prolific that even though it was started as the city of the Longbeards, a lot of the other dwarves started living there too. So it became very cosmopolitan as well as metropolitan.
I agree with all that. I think it's mithril. He's the king, obviously, and this is the time frame for this. But I want to point out something about the wound. The passages in the Silmarillion about Turin Turinbar describe very clearly how Glaurung moves. I'm not going to read the passage, but I could. But it describes very, very clearly that he is so bulky that he has to slide and push, crawl and then push and slide. And this attack against King Azaghal is similar to that. And so this isn't a poking wound. This might have been
a slash.
He was smothered and moved over the top of the king while he had this long dirk, sticking upward. He might have spliced himself open 6 to 10 feet before he realized how much of him was opening up as he slid across this knife. It's described as a great wound, not just a prick. So he might have slid across this and opened him up like a fish in a certain way. But if there's mithril in this time period, which we agree, and I agree with you guys totally before we talked about it, what does this tell you about the masks and the shields? The guys who are the guards of the king who did this attack, they must have been loaded up to get this close. Where the elves and the men are described in this passage as not being able to do it, but the dwarves could do it. So this had to have been a mithril kind of armor with the masks and everything to get this close, and even think they're gonna, get this close to make this attack and make this kind of attempt, and think that they're gonna get away with it. And to a lot of degree, they do get away with it. They're able to get close enough to this dragon in the middle of other dragons to even have this attack. Never mind the fact that the king died on this, but anyway, this is a really cool passage.
It's an important passage
as
for
far as great feats in
hold on, let me
in dwarves, and I'm wondering if it tells you about anything about them.
It does, yeah. I wanted to say,
I mean, obviously he didn't have his axe anymore. He
It's
lost his axe.
It's a
so
very
he had to get his knife out.
It's very, very important world build. Is Matt hearing me right now? Because he's asking me a question and I'm trying to answer.
What do you think about this guy? There's
something going on.
Oswald. Do you know anything more that I don't know about him from the Legendarium that I haven't read? That
am I not being heard right now?
King he was.
Matt.
That I'm
Matt, can you hear me?
Matt's not hearing us right now. Matt is not hearing us.
Matt, you can't hear us. Is there a way to chat him?
I'm going to text him. Oh, I think he might have muted us. He's looking at his volume right now because I went like that. Matt, can you hear me? Now we can't hear you.
You're muted, Matt.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you. Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you were asking a question and we were trying to answer, and you weren't hearing us.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, so the answer, it's incredibly important world building because sometimes Tolkien tells us things without necessarily showing us, and this is getting, where he's lifting the veil a little bit and showing us something. He told us at one point that the dwarves, out of all the races of the free peoples of Middle-earth, were the best at killing dragons. But the thing is, there's so many dragons out there, and we only know about really a few of them, and the ones that have names, and Smaug killed by a man, and Calagon killed by a half-elf, Skaitha killed by a man, Glaurung killed by a man, and we don't have examples of specific dragons being killed by dwarves, just sort of the word of the author that they're renowned as dragon slayers. So I think we're seeing a little bit of the world building here where we're seeing, this guy, even without his axe, he could really hurt a dragon.
They can get close.
Yeah.
Really close.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to back you up on, but you weren't hearing me or Sid. Sid, go ahead. I know you wanted to say stuff.
Matt, before you bow, I have a question for you. You called Glaurung a fire breather, but listening closely to what you read, I saw him as a smoke breather with fire in his belly, but no ability to actually shoot fire out of his mouth, like Smaug did, or our normal idea of dragons could.
He was a fire drake, but he was also able to breathe vapor. And when we consider that there are fire drakes and cold drakes, and that they all came from him, it makes sense that he's able to do both.
But could he actually shoot fire out of his... I thought the text specifically said
he burned
that he could not throw fire out of his mouth.
Well, he didn't in that instance, and he was pretty young at this point, but in the Children of Húrin, he did burn a forest down.
Hold on. Okay. I got the answer right here. In the passage it says, that I read earlier from the Silmarillion, it says, but for them, Glaurung and his brood would have withered all that was left of the Noldor. So that's a fire attack. And later on we have the passage about what he did when he crossed the river and after he was stabbed in the belly by Turin. That passage is even more clear that he lit up the surrounding forest with fire.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha. But go back and please reread what you read earlier about smoke out of his mouth and fire in his belly. I just want to catch the difference. I'm not disagreeing.
Let's see here.
No, Bursker, it's fine. I do acknowledge chat. How you doing? I just wait for a quiet moment.
This is from the tale of the children of Húrin, Narn I Hin Húrin. But he was slow now and stealthy, for all the fires in him were burned low. Great power had gone out of him, and he would rest and sleep in the dark. Thus he writhed through the water and slunk up to the doors like a huge snake, ashen gray, sliming the ground with his belly. His enormous head. This is from The Hobbit. The one you're talking about, the nostrils, and the glow in the deeps of his throat.
That's the part.
About Smaug.
Yeah.
Smaug, yeah.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
I conflated the two on accident, but we've got a couple of passages clearly indicating that Glaurung is a fire breather.
But he could
Got it.
also
Okay,
do
thank you.
what the cold drakes do, which was to breathe a hideous vapor as well. And considering that all dragons came from him, the cold and the fiery ones, it makes sense that he's able to breathe fire, but also the stinking hideous vapor of the cold drakes as well.
The gold drakes are kind of using a nitrogen kind of deal, where it just freezes stuff in place.
It's not literally cold. It's just not fire. It's this poisonous vapor that they like the poem "Scathe of the Worm" that they belch forth, and also the breath of Glaurung is specifically what robbed Turin's sister of her wits and her memories as well.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. I know you wanted to talk about King Azaghal, but I think the dragon's more interesting. And I just wanted to point out that we see a lot of this in Tolkien's writing, that there is always a horrible reek when it comes to the most evil creatures. The first hints we get of Shelob, it is just when Frodo and Sam are trying to make their way through the tunnels under Cirith Ungol, and then they're told there's this one passage where there's just this horrible, horrible smell, and that's where Shelob is,
One thing that really strikes me, though, is getting back to King Azaghal and his men. They're in the middle of a battle with dragons and orcs all around, and they were able to retrieve his body, and with slow steps they walk behind, singing a dirge in deep voices as though it were a funeral pomp in their country, and gave no heed more to their foes. And their foes, it doesn't say this, but it says, and none dared to stay them.
I tried to mess
around with these guys.
No, of course not. I tried to comment on that, but I think you couldn't hear me about the funeral. I was just going to make a joke. I'll make it now. And the song went a little something like, and the king saves the day, but the king dies today in a land far away. All right, sorry, go ahead.
I also suspect they slung their masks on their back like a carried shield, and so as they're walking away,
I love that. You would see
like
that
a
with
blowtorch.
The samurai would do that too. So that I love that. That's really cool.
The movie series that they're doing, The Rings of Power, has featured those dwarf masks.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, despite all the foibles that are going on there, the masks look very good. They did a nice job with the dwarven armor.
The TV show, there's good things and there's okay things and then there's not so okay things. Yeah. But everything to do with the dwarves has been fantastic.
Yeah, they did a good job with it.
Seeing Moria in its prime made it all worth it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. They did a good job with that.
I mean,
well, I think
we still have 7 minutes
tonight. Oh, we do.
You still have 7 minutes in your. Okay. Let's go back to the smell thing then, because Bursker on the Twitch side commented on this as well. When I started to talk about smells, he immediately went to Shelob as well, and saying smells so bad that it incites terror. And really, when you think about it, the way our brains work, the olfactory section of our brain is the most keyed to memories and emotions. Smells will bring back memories, both good and bad, more readily than sights or sounds will. So
it's also a defense mechanism.
It absolutely is. And for a creature like Shelob, and I think even the Balrog might have smelled bad. Gandalf didn't mention it specifically, but when he said that they plunged into the lake below Khazad-dûm, and the fire of the Balrog went out, and there was a great vapor, and it became this slimy, disgusting thing. I can't help it, even though he didn't mention it specifically, imagine a horrible stench.
I can imagine a vaporous, wet sulfur.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
a
Like wet matches.
cloudy fog of sulfur.
Yeah.
Just kind of like not quite
Yeah.
right. Like sulfur for sure, but not quite pure smoke sulfur, but just like steaming,
Brimstone.
foggy sulfur. Yeah, but
Brimstone.
not hot like brimstone.
But the
just,
smell
like I
of
said,
brimstone.
foggy, just
Yeah.
like
Thick.
in the sooty
That's another
part of the
thing.
air.
You
know?
see it in the Lord of the Rings, and you see it in the Children of Hurin, the thick vapors. Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah.
I think many of the nameless things that Gandalf smelled down there were probably like that.
Probably.
But also, I lost the thought. On the noxious and awful quality of smell, there's a lot of confusion about the word necromancy, because in most other fantasy literature, it's primarily about raising the dead. But in Tolkien, it means deathly. The plagues,
Or the manipulation of
Sauron
soul.
and the Witch King, and just this awful, horrible stench and fear of death.
Let me just linguistically chime in there. The word that you're talking about is necromantic. Necromancy is traditionally manipulation of souls. And it became raising of the dead with like Dungeons and Dragons in the 60s, essentially. But traditionally, any medium, anybody who speaks to ghosts or claims they can speak to ghosts would be a necromancer. Or anybody that could manipulate souls like Sauron or Morgoth were necromancers.
Speaking of how bad this smells, in the Silmarillion, when Turin and his assistant Hunthor were waiting Glaurung to come over the crag and the river span, the book describes that this stench was so bad they almost lost their wits, and it was so bad that Hunthor was so affected by it that he lost his concentration and fell to his death.
Yeah.
So this is some stank.
Yeah.
This is some serious stank.
I want to share with you guys, it's just a little back and forth I had with Deborah on the YouTube chat, who would wondered what would Shelob smell like? Probably worse than sulfur. And I said the way I imagine it, the ape enclosure at the zoo at noon in August. That's how I would. The way that he described it, that's kind of like the smell that I mentioned, because I've been to a zoo in August and I know that smell.
I've occasionally sniffed spiders up close.
Really?
And it could have just been a spidery smell.
I've never had to, smell it. What do they smell like?
Oh, I've never smelled anything else like it, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But definitely the webs. Well, think of how old spider webs smell if they've piled up in an attic.
Kind of ozone-y
so
almost.
Yeah, it's like that, only a lot thicker and worse. It's like the essence of dust and just age-old dry rot.
Tolkien says that she smells like that she's got feces and dead rotting flesh stuck in her crevices. So I'm thinking more like a honey bucket and a dead raccoon. Kind of thing. If that makes any sense.
In this case, a dead orc.
Alice,
whatever's been stuck in there and still sitting there after who knows how long, is the way she smelled. Well, the passages from the book says that's what was stuck in there. So.
Let me address the chat here. Alice brings up sweaty, damp straw, which goes into the dry rot thing that you talked about.
Yeah.
David, to answer your question, no, the root word for Sauron does not refer to bad smell. It refers to hatred. It is the hated, the abhorred. Mm-hmm. You're thinking of like literally the word sour, like a sour smell, but that's English. That's not Elvish. Okay.
I wish they made Sour Patch Kids called Saurons.
Little tiny gummy eyes with
little black licorice. Little black licorice Saurons.
I like black licorice, but no, you know what they should be? They should be those gummies that are just incredibly spicy. You know, like they have like the ghost pepper powder, and we're out of time for this, but we're just goofing off now. You know, you just get like imagine that the gummy, the eye of sound. You know, we were talking about gummies in the chat. Alice, my mom, said, "What's the deal with gummy bears? Why are they shaped like bears? Why did they choose bears?" And I had seen a video of a guy named Ed Curry. He's an expert on hot peppers. He's the one that created the Carolina Reaper. And he was trying out different snacks that were all, you know, supposedly very spicy. And he was rating them on how spicy they were. And one was this, just in this box, it was a single red gummy bear. And he's like, I know what this is, and I really don't want to eat it. And he takes like a knife and he cuts off just like the little tiny foot of the gummy bear. And he puts it in his mouth and he says, It's the most messed up thing because it's this fruity, pleasant taste until you start chewing, and then it's just death. You know, it's just pain, and all you taste is ghost pepper and nothing else. And I'm thinking, why did they go with the bear? They could have made that the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah, but there actually is an even worse flavor than a reefer or a ghost pepper, and it comes from Nordic, I think, particularly Norwegian licorice. And they have I learned about this on YouTube yesterday randomly. They have a powder that is the essential flavor from which licorice is made. Mm-hmm. And it's just utterly industrial strength, like a tiny, you just put your dry finger into it, tap it, touch it on your tongue, and it's deathly.
Yeah. And I like licorice. But I wouldn't go for you know, like this stuff that would probably make a ton of candy out of like a little tiny pinch, you know?
There was a story involving this stuff, and a woman who liked it as just a tiny touch of candy, but everyone thought she was nuts. A friend borrowed it thinking it was powdered cocaine.
Oh. Did you mean coke? Cocaine?
Yeah, coke. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cocaine. As in, she sniffed it, and she lost her sense of smell for 6 months.
6 months?
It was acidic enough. She had blood pouring out of her head. Yeah. They called the paramedics, and she had severely damaged her tissues inside her nasal passages.
I would never do that. I enjoy licorice, but not like that. You know what I mean? I have had pure cocoa powder. The chocolate without the sugar or anything, or without the milk. I liked it because I like really bitter stuff like that. But what you're talking about sounds like going from hot sauce to pepper spray.
Yeah.
You know?
And actually, in our family, when I can't eat much chocolate, my body doesn't go for it. But when I like dark chocolate around 72% up to 85%. Chris starts at 85 and goes for 95% chocolate.
Chris is a woman after my own tastes, at least as far as chocolate is concerned.
A 60% guy on that one.
60%. Well, that's milk chocolate.
60 to 66.
That's milk chocolate at that point.
Whatever.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it if you prefer milk chocolate. I like all kinds of chocolate, but and Chewy, thank you for joining as a member again for 7 months. Glad you're back in action. Sid, Matt, John, great show. Thank you so much, Chewy, for joining as a member. Enjoy seeing all the videos early and your emotes and your badge and everything. And also, Alice, song title, Police Grade Licorice. Let's keep that in mind. Police grade licorice. Wait, military grade licorice. So,
that sounds really
tactical candy, right? You've had 100% bar. I would love to try 100% bar of chocolate, but I'm adventurous like that. A friend of mine who likes dark chocolate tried the 95% and decided it wasn't for her, but yeah.
Might as well just get some baking chocolate.
Okay, Bursker, yes, Sauron does have another elvish name. It was Gorthaur, which alludes less to hatred and more to cruelty. The thing is that he was mostly called Gorthaur in the region of Beleriand, which was the region of Middle-earth that was destroyed, and most of the elves that did live there wound up sailing to the west. So in Middle-earth, Sauron in the Second and Third Age became far more popular to call him. Also, his true name, which is an elvish name, is Mairon, which means the precious or the admirable. or the wonderful one, but obviously the elves refused to
Hey,
call him that.
why don't we open up to the chat for anybody to ask any one of us any question while we got a little bit of time?
Well, here's one from Dylan, and it goes into what we were talking about. Would chocolate have existed in Middle Earth? And I feel absolutely yes. Why not? Absolutely.
Well, if you've got potatoes,
Yeah.
and tobacco, you have
And tomatoes
somehow
and,
magically New World.
I had answered a question
actually-
about that where somebody was like, how could they have these New World plants if it's supposed to be Europe? And I'm like, bro, they have dragons and hobbits too. Those aren't real. Like, come on, man, calm down a little bit. Like you can, and I said there's an explanation for all of it. We know that the tobacco came from Numenor. So we can guess that maybe the tomatoes came from there, and potato could have just been a translation of whatever root vegetable Frodo was writing about,
Oh,
It could-
it had to be potatoes.
I mean, it had to be potatoes for me because of Sam. Toes, Gaffer's delight, rare ballast for an empty belly.
If you want to read a story in which Gollum lives long enough to come to like potatoes, go out to my archiveofourown.com and read Remembrances of Times Past.
Remembrances of
At the
times
end of all-
past. Okay.
At the end of all things, Gollum has a redemption and learns to like cooked fish. And
Here's another question
funny.
from the chat. Where would each of you like to go grab a meal from anywhere in Middle Earth besides the Shire? I'm going to be honest with you. The Shire wouldn't even be my first choice, mostly because they rely heavily on mushrooms. And no. Mushrooms are haunted. No. I would want to feast. I know we've discussed this enough today. I want to feast with the dwarves. I want to drink their beer and eat their meats.
I usually think of Lothlorien, but I'm going to go different. My mood tonight says I want a dinner or brunch with Tom and Goldberry.
Okay.
God, you stole mine.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going with two. I'm going to go to anything on Numenor.
Oh, Numenor. Okay. They probably had some good chow there.
And the second thing is I want to have some grilled Nern perch.
You know what? I agree. I hadn't even thought of the seafood angle of it, and
Nern perch.
I love
the lake
seafood.
Nern. Who knows what that tastes like?
Yeah.
But what the heck?
I'm
the Anthony Bourdain of Middle Earth.
And Bursker, I'm being facetious.
Is Nern, or am I missing something? There's the Sea of
Nern.
Nern?
It's in Mordor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's fun. Grilled,
I thought
that would be a
grilled
saltwater
Nern
fish.
perch.
wait, I
Nobody
thought
likes
it was
perch.
Nern. I thought it was Nurnen, N-U-R-N-E-N.
Yeah, it is. But I call it Nern
Okay.
perch.
Yeah, he's saying that they would be called Nern perch if they're from the Sea of Nurnen, which is a salt.
fine,
There wouldn't be
no
perch because it's a saltwater sea, but maybe a sea bass or something, right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Do we know it was saltwater?
Yeah.
It's called a sea, but
We do. It's an inland sea that is saltwater. That's why they didn't really have a lot of freshwater. The freshwater came out of the Morgul Vale in Mordor. The inland sea there was a saltwater sea.
Well, in my imagination, the perch have adapted themselves to
Oh,
saltwater.
okay. Well, why not? Why not, right?
And the orcs, if they get lucky, they can spear one, and then they're gonna cook it, and it's called grilled Nern perch.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
my menu
why
item
I like
for
it.
tonight.
I got you.
Second that. Bursker, I just wanted
yeah.
to say I was being a little bit facetious with the dwarves thing. They are generally speaking not great cooks. Although it was said that Bilbo had dwarves working the kitchens at his birthday party, his 111th birthday party, they generally buy food from the other races. I just want to feast with them. I want the company and the beer and the stories because a meal is not just you're just eating. I'm hungry. Let me just shove some spaghetti in my mouth. A meal with others.
Yeah, you should probably catch up with a bunch of dwarves within 7 years of the Lord of the Rings at Barlam and Butterer's
Oh, there you go.
Prancing Pony, because you have the best beer unsurpassed in all time.
And Aragorn said it was always good, even before Gandalf blessed it.
Because I got a question for you guys. Have you ever heard of Harostarian grouse?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I have.
Where is Harostarian grouse from?
I don't know where it's from, but I've seen it on the internet.
It's one of the 5 provinces of Numenor.
Oh, there you go.
And they say the grouse there is the best in Middle Earth.
We have fun. Harostarian grouse.
Actually, my first memory of wanting a meal in Middle Earth was what Beorn gave Gandalf and Thorin and company.
Oh, all the honey and the cream and the bread and everything, you know.
And brought out on the backs of sheep.
And deer and birds and stuff, yeah. Yeah, the only thing is I'm such a carnivore. It'd be like that scene in the Hobbit film, where's the meat, you know, which is a silly scene. It should have applied to Beorn, not the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves definitely ate meat. Like, there's no doubt about that. But, yeah, okay, so it's been a great show, you guys. It's been an absolute great show, and Dylan is completely freaking out about the food discussion, but yeah. I think that... Bersker, that's what I'm getting at. The dwarves would have sort of like simple food, as you said. They would have, you know, like salty potatoes, smoky meat, stew, things like that. But I like stuff like that too, you know. And I think it makes for good fellowship, and there'd be lots of bread and ale and that kind of thing. But anyway, guys.
That's so great.
Let's briefly talk about scheduling stuff. If you're watching me on Twitch, I'll be live tomorrow afternoon playing Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake and just following the general schedule after that. If you're watching me on YouTube, let's see. So next week is the 20th. I definitely want to do a reading stream. So we will return with reading and analyzing more of The Two Towers. And Sid and Matt, are we good to meet back here December 4th for the final show? Yes. Now, I know that I had planned to do a special show. The final show of the year.
I assume you mean of the year.
Of the year.
Yes. That's a little better.
Yeah. Final show of 2025.
Anybody too excited there.
Yeah. We had planned to do a special show with recasting the movies and doing that, but since we only have 2 weeks lead up time, and you know, I haven't been able to give it much thought because the last 5 to 6 weeks of my life has been dealing with this computer problem and getting all that squared away. Let's move the special one to January. We'll make it our first show of the year, and for the last show of the year, we'll just have a normal episode. Maybe we could even do something. Maybe I'll do something holiday themed. We'll see how it is, right?
One question about January.
Yep.
The 1st is Thursday. Do we want to meet on New Year's Day? I have no problem with
I have no problem with it unless you guys do. Look, I'm not going to be hungover or nothing. I mean,
is January 1st Thursday?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I see no issue. Yep.
Huh.
We're all going to be here, right?
Okay, if we do something special, I'll be happy to go with it. If not, it would be a great day to do calendars as my topic.
Well, why don't you make that your December one, since that's ending the year, and I was thinking of doing something about holidays anyway, and that could play into it.
I have to check. You may be right, John. I may have never actually presented part 3 of Hobbit.
Yeah, please check on that. Please check on that, because I only remember doing 2 parts.
I think what happened is I wrote all 3 and then it suddenly got canceled, but my notes weren't clear about that.
Yeah, double check, because maybe we could finish that on December then. But anyway,
that would be good.
But for January, we'll probably do that. We'll do the special one. I'll send you guys like a document outlining, you know, what I want to do, and it's not going to be like that formal, but you'll see what I mean. You know.
Cool.
Anyway, guys, let's. Where are we here? We're going to go over, not that one, this one. And if you're watching on YouTube, the live is going to end momentarily. If you're watching on Twitch, which apparently Twitch has been telling me this whole time that the stream is bad quality, the stream is unstable. I'm watching the stream. It's fine. I don't know what that's all about. Sometimes Twitch is twitchy. But let's see if we have anybody that we could raid and send the guys that are on Twitch somewhere else. Oh, Captain Retro. Perfect. He's playing The Last of Us. I'm going to raid him. All right. Let's do that. For those of you watching on Twitch, there will be a shift where we go over to Captain Retro. His intro will play. There's a rap song written just about him, which is, I wish somebody would do that for me. But, well, actually, I know the guy who did it. Maybe he will do it for me if I pay him some money. We're going to head over there. We'll see you guys over there. We'll see you guys on Discord. We'll see you guys on Twitch. We'll see you guys on YouTube. We'll see you guys in Middle-earth. Here we go.